Central Europe, a term that is widely used by every former Eastern Bloc country. Every person living there has an incontestable conviction their country belongs to the progressive ephemeral Central Europe. Look at us, we're not that poor Eastern Europe now. We're just like Germany and Switzerland. At the same time, everything that is more Eastern from them is where the Eastern Europe begins. And yet, if you ask any person outside of so-called Central Europe, they will tell you it's Eastern Europe. This leads to a question, what is Central Europe and whether it exists? To begin with, what defines a region? Most would immediately think about geography. Okay, what is the center point in Europe? Immediately, you would find it in Perniskes, Lithuania, right at the border with Belarus. The distance from Perniskes to Bern is around 2000 kilometers, and to get to Moscow, you need to drive only for 900 kilometers. Russia, my favorite Central European country. But screw this. Let's take the westernmost and the easternmost points of Europe, draw the straight line, and find the middle point. For the westernmost point, we will use the Azores Islands, and for the easternmost, Cape Flesinski. We take into the account the curvature of the Earth, draw a straight line, and the center of Europe is apparently located in Iceland. Well, clearly, geographic criterion doesn't work. The next indicator would be political and economical. Okay, when you think about the most powerful economies in Europe, what countries come to mind? Exactly, Slovakia. Now, you might think I'm making an oversimplified comparison between the strong EU economies and weak Slovakia to make my point. Now, you are wrong, because you would be absolutely mesmerized to learn that Slovakia has more developed automotive industry than Italy. Before, you thought Czechia was more developed than Slovakia, but remember who kept their statehood during the World War II. Politically, three countries with the most seats in the European Parliament are Germany, France, and Italy. The five top militaries in Europe, besides the swampland, are the UK, France, Italy, Germany, and Spain. Please keep in mind the British and frogs have nuclear bombs, making them OP. If we take the definition of political as the alignment, then you have most countries in Europe westernlined, and all the others are just special needs countries. But maybe it's about culture. You all know this typical situation where you have four investment bankers from Germany, Switzerland, Poland, and Hungary having this timid, quiet banter about the classical music, when suddenly this group of uncultured Ukrainian football fans celebrate and interrupt with their obnoxious yelling at midnight. You don't? In that case, my friend, you're just blind, because it's a known fact that Central Europeans would never do it. Nothing can beat the cultural ties between a person from Seine and Louis from Geneva. Not even half of his family living in Lviv. So what is the general opinion? As we all know, you can think you are an aspiring crypto analyst, but if the majority of your friends and family say you're not, perhaps you're just not, and you need to get out of your mom's basement and find a job. This is how I picture the typical conversation between a Hungarian and an American. So, are you from Europe? I'm from Skedenish, a little town near the second biggest city for Lamekes. That's cool. Where's it again? Hungary. Central Europe. No, yeah, that's awesome, dude. My great-great-great-great-great-mother was from St. Petersburg too. The whole conversation surrounding Central Europe is, get ready for it, centered around the trauma and the resentment of the former Eastern Bloc countries not wanting to associate themselves with the stereotypes of being poor, underdeveloped countries under the boot of Russia. And I get that, truly. But trying so hard to tell everyone to think of them as the same country as Switzerland, I'm sorry, that just comes off as trying to pretend to be a cool kid and repeat after your favorite celebrity instead of becoming one yourself. You know what will make everybody else think these countries are more Western? Being one. This encompasses developing a strong economy, military, accepting Western values, and not electing pro-Russian corrupt politicians or literal thugs. And as a cherry on top, abandoning this hyper-focus on your history and the lost old borders might help. This is the reason why I believe Czechia is the only exception which can be vaguely classified as the Western country. It still preserves a lot of the Eastern symptoms, but so far it has done the best job at getting rid of them and focusing their attention on the modern day. When it comes to the other countries, I believe it's important to recognize that there has been done a lot in the past 30 years to get closer to the West and accept their values. All of these former Soviet bloc countries are now integrated into the Western institutions, which says a lot, considering you cannot join the EU without being a functioning democracy. In any case, these countries have done a much better job than, say, Ukraine or, God forbid, Belarus at escaping the Soviet legacy.